Hey everyone, we're going to do something a little different today. I had wanted you to meet someone from a brand that I'm sure you've all heard of. We'll reveal that in a moment. But first, this brand has over 500,000 likes on their Facebook page. According to Moz, one piece of content of theirs alone has over 79 linking root domains. That's over 79 websites linking to this brand's piece of content. And their domain authority is 75. That's very high, by the way. Okay, so I'm telling you all those numbers to impress you, but to also say that I know metrics matter, but how you get those metrics matters even more. And this brand has done so by building a thriving community. Just today, one of their organic Facebook posts received over 38 comments, over 1,100 shares, and almost 2,000 likes. To quote the person from this brand I want to introduce to you, she says, "A positive brand interaction, quote, builds friendship. Friendship builds loyalty. And loyalty will eventually build sales." You can see why I wanted to talk to her. So, with some persistence, I found her email address and reached out to ask for an interview. The PR company wrote back and said, "No. We're not going to let that stop us." So instead, because I believe in their message and lessons and the value you can receive by learning from her, I'm going to play you an interview with her from February 2012, done by DJ Waldo on YouTube. DJ, thank you so much for letting me use this audio clip. It was the only interview that I could find with her online. DJ will reveal the brand in the beginning of his interview. Even though it's over 4 years old, the lessons are timeless. After the video, we'll chat for a few minutes about a few key ways to apply the things from the video. So, I'm just going to hit play, and I'll see you on the other side.
So the reason I wanted to chat with you today, PJ, I know that you are obviously very involved with a lot of the social media stuff that's going on at King Arthur Flour. And so I guess the first question I wanted to know is just maybe a little bit more about your background, where you came from, how you came to work at King Arthur Flour. I know you've got a publishing, writing background as well. Maybe just spend a few minutes and tell us about that.
Sure. Well, I got out of college and went up to Maine and worked at a newspaper for 15 years as a writer, editor, photographer, a small weekly newspaper, and got a lot of background in writing then. I'd always been a writer. And moved over to King Arthur Flour, sideways across New England about 21 years ago to when they were starting a catalog and they needed a writer. And so I wrote the catalog for many years and newsletters and 3 cookbooks and anything they needed written, advertising. And when the web came along, I fell in love with it. And I remember discovering Google and saying, "Look at this Google," and the IT guy saying, "Forget that. That's not going to be anything." But I just loved it, how easy it was to research and find things and connect with people, and so I've pretty much been on the web for probably 4 or 5 years.
That's great. And so you've been involved obviously in a lot of different aspects. I didn't realize you wrote cookbooks as well and all this. So we have to talk after this about some of your favorite recipes. But that's great, and it's interesting. The reason, and for those that are listening, the reason that we connected, I've been a fan of King Arthur Flour for a while. I had a great exchange. My mom actually had replied to given some feedback in an email that King Arthur Flour sent, and it was great. King Arthur responded. There was actually a real human that responded. You and I were talking about this importance of, I think you said it. You made a comment about how technology. Something along the lines of technology is certain enables, but it's not the end all be all. Technology is great, but the point is making connections, and we make those connections personally, one to one to one to one. Just like that. And technology, it would be very difficult without that, and certainly it was in the past. Very much slower, but I just love the speed and the facility of being able to connect with a baker in South Africa and somebody in China and, somebody in the next town and just people all over the world who get together around
baking. That's a common interest and passion.
So almost fair to say that you still have to build those one-to-one relationships, but you can use technology to make that happen quicker or be easier, right? Because otherwise, how are you going to connect with that person, that baker in South Africa? Technology makes that easier.
Right. And something like Facebook or Twitter, where you can, or Google Plus, any of them, where you can put something out there and 60,000 people at a time can see it if they choose to see it, and comment on it if they choose to comment on it. It's just that really gets the conversation going.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, I think the way that we connected, I was fascinated by, obviously King Arthur Flour has a very strong following on Facebook. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people like the King Arthur Flour Facebook page. And the one, I think it was not all that long ago. In fact, it was late at night, too. It was like at 9 p.m., at least where I live in Salt Lake. Or maybe it was even later. It was later for you on the East Coast. But you posted something that said, and I won't read the whole thing, but it says, help, we're redesigning our shopping website. And then you go through, what would you like to see change? Add your comments, share this with anybody. As I'm looking at this today, and this is, let's see, not even 2 weeks ago, 27 people liked this page or this post, 11 people shared it. And here's the kicker. 152 people responded. How did you do that? How do you get that many people to respond?
That's actually not that many. We've had where, we've had thousands of likes and a lot of comments, but I think the key to that is when you ask people for help, people want to help. It's just in your human nature that you want to be helpful. Most people, I'd say 95% of people, if you say, will you give me a hand, they'll say, sure. So if you just start out by saying, will you help us? Everyone perks up and says, sure. And, then you give them something fairly easy. That actually was a difficult one. A lot of them are pretty simple, like, help, we're trying to think of a new cookie flavor. What's your favorite? Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and do something like that. But this is one they had to think about. So that actually was a pretty good number of responses for a thoughtful.
Well, and what I was interested about, too, is there was definitely some community aspect to this. I mean, people were responding back to each other. And, I almost looked at this and you posted this and it almost seemed like you stepped away and said, go and let people have that conversation. Was that very intentional or was that something that you looked at the responses coming in and you said, okay, let's let the community continue to answer these?
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. It did happen like that. And then when I saw it happening, I just said, okay, I'm not getting in the middle of this. So
right.
Just let it happen. And we found Facebook especially is a wonderful instant focus group. If one of our other posters this weekend put up a post, tell us what your favorite food magazines are. Just because we want to get a sense of what people like. We're always trying to figure out what are our customers really like and what do they like and what would they like to see and how can we help them and what are their challenges. So we always like to ask questions. And
my answer to that, by the way, is fine cooking, without a doubt.
Oh, okay. Well, you're in the minority, but
my wife and I we do a lot of cooking at home. So, but this is although they have baking stuff in there too, certainly. But we love fine cooking.
Yeah.
So you said something that's really interesting to me. You use it as research and as like a focus group.
That's one thing we use it for. Yeah.
Do you also? So in this particular case, obviously, this was like a focus group, and you got 152 people. Let's say even there was 100 or 125 individuals commenting. What was the cost to you to do that?
I don't know. How much could it be? I mean, Facebook doesn't cost anything. The cost was simply to take the answers and collate them into a spreadsheet so that we could, act on them.
So at some point there was a manual process of copy, paste, and moving things into a spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously act on it. But yeah, okay. So it was
the cost was for me to stay up late and put it up there. That's all.
Right. Okay. So really the pretty minimal cost as opposed to getting kind of corralling everybody into a room and paying their lunch and paying them some kind of stipend to be there for the day.
Oh yeah, and it's instant. It takes, if you want to know something very quickly, you put it up there, and honestly, in 30 minutes, you can have a really good read on something.
Yeah, that's great. And so I'm curious too. You talked about Facebook. You've mentioned already Google Plus and Twitter. I know we had talked about Pinterest, that you're starting to dig in there. What are you finding works best for you? Which social network is working the best for you for King Arthur Flour?
I think Facebook right now. Twitter, another woman does Twitter, and she uses it a lot for announcing things. I think it's a better kind of announcing a sale, announcing a class, something like that. I
broadcast, would you say?
Yeah, a broadcast kind of thing. But Google Plus audience is way different than a Facebook audience is in our case. Google Plus is very male, very international, very young. And our Facebook audience is basically female, older, and American, pretty much. So I see the Google Plus crowd as the crowd. We want to be in there with them because we need to grow our customer base and, be in touch with the next generation. But right now, truthfully, they're really not our customers. But maybe we can at least get our name out there so that when they do become our customers, hopefully at some point they will have heard of King Arthur Flour.
So on that note, are you finding that some of the social media networks that you're using, you talked about this being a focus group and really for research, are you finding any of them that are actually leading to new customers or more people buying stuff from King Arthur Flour or because of your involvement in social media?
It's hard to track because sales directly from Facebook to our website are not significant. And we don't expect them to be because that's not what we're using it for. But to get your brand out there and to get people to have a positive experience interacting with you, to me, that builds friendship, and friendship builds loyalty. Loyalty eventually will build sales. That's what I believe.
That's great. So really, you're using it not as much, using more of reputation in a sense, like building your reputation, building credibility, trust, all those things you.
Yeah, building friendship, to me, that's very important because I like to think, I'm teaching people to bake, and in fact, King Arthur is the biggest educator of home bakers in the world, and a lot of it is one-to-one. It's like, take my hand, I'm going to show you how to do this. And so, you get on Facebook and you just write a little blurb. It leads to a blog where it shows them step by step by step by step how to make Boston cream pie or something like that. And I just love that. That's what my title is Web Producer, Community and Education. And I love community and education equally. And really we use social media, for focus groups and things like that. But really, to me, it's still about building relationships. That's number one. You build the relationship and you're their friend, and then they trust you and they will bake using King Arthur Flour. They'll have success, and it's just like a circle that goes around and around. That's great.
Well, I should also say that so I'm recording this, it's almost noon here. So every time you mention food, I'm salivating slightly. I'm thinking about this. So I'll have to go to my closet or my pantry and see if I can grab some King Arthur Flour products and such. But I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today about this. I think, as I mentioned, King Arthur Flour to me is one of those companies that really understands how to use social media effectively. As you mentioned, from your standpoint, building friendships is certainly the most important. I thought it was interesting you said building friendships. I talked about building relationships. You made it even more personal, building friendships. I really like that.
Baking is a very, it's a pretty personal subject. You're creating food for your friends and family. It's close to people's hearts, you know, and they want to do it successfully. They want to make something that everyone goes, whoa, that tastes great, and makes everybody feel good. And we can help them do that. And I just love to put Facebook posts on that are just fun and make people smile. Like I put one of the most popular ones I ever put up there was, it's 7:00 in the morning, look outside and tell me what the temperature is outside your window. And hundreds of people just said, well, it's 26 degrees here in, Salt Lake City. And some people put pictures of their yard out there. It was good.
That's great. Like you said, it's building trust and relationships, but as you said, it's building friendships. I think that really is the key.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for your time today, PJ. I appreciate you talking with us, and I look forward to sharing this with everyone.
Great. My pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that interview. So I just wanted to chat for a few minutes informally about why I believe this is so important. So is community alone important? Yes, of course it is. It's great to get interaction and engagement, but the real reason that I wanted to share this about community with you is because it actually helps SEO. Yes, that's true. Having a great, thriving community actually helps your SEO. So back in 2014, I wrote a post on Moz called The Broken Art of Company Blogging. And in that post, which I do realize I wrote in a semi-controversial tone, it did get a lot of negative feedback. But in that, I sort of tried to substantiate that, to me, commenting is the blogging metric. What I mean by that is I believe that when you blog, whether that's for your blog or a company blog, if you have commenting enabled, of course, because now there's a trend on some sites to not have comments at all, which is a separate conversation, and I do kind of disagree with that. But if you have comments enabled, to me, that's the most important thing to look for as a result from your blogging. If people are commenting, that means so many things. It means that they're maybe more likely to remember you. They've engaged with your piece of content, so they're going to remember you. They're more likely to visit again. This might be because they remember your site, they've engaged with it, they're forming an emotional connection. Or they might get an alert from Discus or from the blogging platform if somebody replies to them or adds an additional content. It probably means they actually consumed or read at least some of the content. I know some people will skim parts of it. But if somebody leaves a comment, it means that they, at least in some way, engaged with your content and paid attention to it. And now, if they've left a comment on your blog that's important to them, they may want other people to see that piece of content. So maybe they're going to share it or be more likely to message it to a friend. And now they're a little personally invested in that content as well. So that was back in 2014. I wrote that post on Moz. April 27th, 2016, 2 years later, Jen Slegg, who we interviewed on Experts on the Wire way back in the beginning, she asked somebody from Google, Gary, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. I'll link to it in the show notes. She asked Gary, are there any other SEO ranking benefits for comments or a thriving community beyond quality content? And he replied and said, it feeds into general quality. Say there's good content, 5 points. Great links from great pages, 2 points. Thriving community, 1 point. So what he's insinuating there is everything's kind of scored, and he did kind of follow up and say that those aren't actual like points or scores of metrics that Google uses. His point was, though, is that having a thriving community, such as people commenting, does impact rankings. So somebody from Google saying that clearly establishes the fact of something I was trying to communicate in 2014 and really believe in, and that is receiving comments and engagement and having a community will help SEO. Forget about all the other things just for a second. This is going to help your SEO. So if you're blogging and not paying attention to people commenting and interacting, and if that's happening, I think you're really missing out on a huge opportunity. So I want to jump into 5 takeaways that I got from that interview with PJ for how you can receive more comments. Number 1, ask for help. She talked about just posting something, asking for feedback, and to keep it easy. So again, you don't want to put a lot of friction between the reader and then getting them to reply. Make it a simple question, just like she said, what's the temperature where you are today? And if that's a question that would be fun for your audience, then that's great. But another example I can think of that falls a little bit more along, not the easy spectrum, but a longer discussion. Buffer posted something entitled something to the effect of "Why We're Failing at Social Media." They posted this on their blog. Now, Buffer is a social media tool and company, yet they're vulnerable and transparent enough to write about something that they believe that they were failing at. Now, they didn't have the answer. They had some hypothesis, but this blog post received 415 comments to this day. And I believe they posted that maybe 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a little longer. So in that time, it has received 415 comments. That's a great testament to the value of asking your community for help. So if you're trying to think of ways to ask for help, I would recommend make a big giant list of all the things that you or your business might be struggling with. Just do a big brainstorm and take a look at your list and go through those items and ask yourself, what could make a great blog post, a great article that I could publish asking my community for their advice and their help. Number 2, use this for research and to ask questions. So what she was saying there is they're not just thinking about pushing out content to their users. They're thinking of collecting information from the users. And I don't mean to make it sound so data-driven. They're trying to learn from people that are important to them. So one example is if you're running a software company, you could ask for opinions on a new design of your product, a new color of a button, a new font choice, a new UX decision you're trying to make. Involve your customers in the process of you designing or building your product. If you are in a service industry, maybe you want to ask for people's opinions on the industry. Maybe you want to collect information about people in this industry. So Moz is a great example of this. They do many surveys in the SEO and marketing industry. Now, their surveys they do are more robust, but there's no reason you can't do this as an informal blog post. So Moz will ask their users things like, what tools do they use for marketing? What job roles do people have in marketing? What prices are they charging for services for their marketing? There's so many things you can ask. A third tip is to go to a site like inbound.org or any community site, maybe a community in Reddit. Look at what has been their most engaged questions. So any Q&A site will do. So if there's a Q&A site in your industry, look at not the questions that are the most popular by people voting them up, but by the ones that have been the most engaged with. How can you take elements that they have used and pull those into your industry? Number 3, teach. So this is so critical, and I think marketers are getting a little bit better at this, but the spirit of it is really trying to help people. And I want to encourage everyone to go to Jason Fried's TED video called Marketing by Sharing. I will link to it in the show notes. He explains this really well. How to teach with your marketing material, how to share, how to be transparent, how to not hold things back, but to really want to try to help people. So, what's the best recipe that you could create for your industry? What can you show people that maybe you are trying to just keep, behind an email opt-in? What's something you can just share for free to teach your industry? You can also go to Quora to find the questions that people are most asking in your industry. And you can go back to step 2, which was actually asking your users questions. You could ask them the things that they would like to learn about, and then you could turn around and write a piece of content about that. Number 4, focus on building friendships. So I know this sounds kind of, theoretical, not metric based. People want to know, where's the marketing? Where's my, how many leads is this going to get me? How many new users am I going to have? They want to quantify things and bring it more towards business. But I think PJ was making a really great point here. I love her philosophy on this. She was saying that if you build a friendship, someone that feels like a friend will trust you. If they trust you, they'll be loyal to your community. And if they're loyal to your community, even if they don't buy something, they're still very likely to share your content, to talk about you online or offline, to engage with your community, to maybe link to your site. And they may actually buy your product depending upon the situation that you're in. What you really want to do here is dig for the why. Why is somebody interacting with you, with your brand, and why do they want to be a part of your community? And PJ really hit on this. She said that they know that this isn't just about flour. This is about people wanting to entertain and impress and connect with their friends and family at home. It's about baking. It's about the food that they eat. And when you really connect the dots, food is essential to life and it connects people together. And they really seem to understand that purpose at King Arthur Flour. Number 5, in your company or in your blog, depending upon your situation, if you're trying to find somebody to blog for your company, blog for your website, to interact with people on social media, use an actual author, a subject matter expert, or at least somebody with passion for the topic or industry. PJ's a great example of this. She was involved with King Arthur Flour for 25 years to this day. So way before the web, she wrote books about baking and recipes and was very involved in not only writing, but this topic for a long time. She is absolutely a topic expert. So I want to encourage you to think cross-discipline. If you're working for a company, you might not always find the best match if you're searching job titles or taking resumes that say social media manager or community manager. These are people that are, they're approaching it from the marketing direction. Think about approaching it from another direction. Can you find somebody in a that has a different title or a different discipline, but actually has more of the skill set that you may actually be looking for, like a journalist or like an author, or somebody that was in customer service, or somebody that was in sales? And can you pull them into the quote marketing department or quote social department, get them up to speed with the tools? Because tools are just tools, right? Once people learn the mechanics of Facebook, what's really more important, and what PJ said, is this is about technology connecting people. So you need to look for people that have people skills to interact with your customers and fans. So speaking of customer service, an episode coming up, we're going to hear from a company that actually hired somebody that was from the customer service industry to run all of their social media. And you're going to learn about what this has done for their social media. I'll give you a little teaser. Their YouTube channel has over 500,000 subscribers, which is really phenomenal for their industry. So those are the 5 takeaways. Now, you want to tie this all back to metrics. I'm not just about this kind of philosophical, theoretical, do these things, build a community, and then just kind of, hope that it works, or leave it up to chance, or leave it up to faith. That's great. That's a great mindset, but we need to tie this back to metrics. So what I want to encourage you all to do is, first, define your goal. What is your goal of having a community? Now, mine, in the context of this podcast episode, revolves around SEO. So my theory and what I've seen online is that content that gets more comments is more likely to rank in Google. So you may want to measure rankings or impressions or organic search traffic when it comes to judging the performance. So let's say you take these 5 tactics and you put them into your content and you try to get more comments, and you do get more comments. Well, for the content that gets more commenting and engagement, do you rank better? Do you get more organic traffic? And it's as simple as that. You just have a goal that's a metric, and you need to tie that to the input of that initiative. So what I would also encourage you to do, getting slightly more advanced here, is do an 80-20 analysis of either your site or other sites that get comments. So if you're not totally familiar with 80-20, I'm going to link to in the show notes an article that I did called What is 80-20? What is the 80-20 rule? I'm reading it right off my screen. What 80-20 really is, and how do you apply it to SEO? So I wrote an article a few years ago about how to apply the 80-20 rule to SEO. And the real reason I want you to check it out, it will explain in detail and show with many pictures how to apply 80-20 to your marketing efforts. So in this situation, what I would encourage you to do is take all of the posts on your site and look for the top few posts that are contributing a disproportionate amount of the comments. So in other words, let's say you've done 100 posts on your blog, yet 10 of those posts have 80% or 90% of the total amount of comments that your entire blog has. And the other 90 posts have 20% or less of the comments. So think about that. A top few number of posts are probably contributing to a disproportionately large amount of comments that you receive. Identify those and try to look for the commonalities that may have contributed to that commenting. Now, you might need to adjust because some posts might have gotten more traffic and thus more comments. So you might need to look at, some kind of average, like the average number, the comments per visit. Maybe you can come up with some kind of metric like that. But when you identify these, then just question what maybe led to those comments. Do those posts have something in common that had some kind of call to action or some reason, some inspiration for that person to leave a comment? And make that analysis and then try to repeat what worked already. Now, the cool thing about this is you can do this totally publicly, right? You can look at a successful website or a community like inbound.org or Growth Hackers or Reddit. You can publicly see the amount of comments that they have per post. Now, you don't have the traffic, so you're going to have to, maybe make some assumptions that some posts got a higher amount of traffic, but still, you're going to be able to kind of loosely, anecdotally tell the posts that have a disproportionate amount of comments compared to the others. Look at those and analyze them for why did they receive those comments. You're probably going to come up with some unique insights on that beyond the 5 tips from PJ. Again, I want to remind you, metrics do matter. I love them. I love looking at traffic go up. I love looking at rankings improve. And of course, I love looking at businesses achieving their business goals like revenue. But how you get those metrics matters even more. So as you're building your businesses online, remember what PJ said. Friendships build loyalty, and loyalty leads to sales. I also want to encourage everyone to follow DJ Waldo on Twitter at DJ Waldo. Give him a little shout out if you want to and tell him thanks for letting us use the clip of his interview. And also check out King Arthur Flower for their community. Now, this interview with PJ was from 2012, so they may run things differently now. But definitely check them out. I think they're still doing some great things. I'm in no way connected to King Arthur Flower, by the way. I'm not incentivized to promote their brand or their product. I just think they exemplify a great community online. And lastly, I have set up an email list. So if you go to evolvingseo.com/wire and sign up, I'm going to send you a few emails a month giving you advance notice of who I'm going to be interviewing on the show and give you a chance to submit a question. I will read them that question and they will answer your specific question. So I hope you take that special opportunity to sign up on the list and get advance notice and get your question in. So I want to thank everyone for joining me on episode 22 of Experts on the Wire, and I will see you next time. All music and audio production by me.